They trust you with everything. Their scraped knees, their big questions, their growing bodies. So when you choose a supplement for your family, you don't compromise. At AzureWell, we put the full truth on the label. Every ingredient, every amount. And we test beyond industry standards to ensure what's listed is what's inside. AzureWell, the standard you hold for your family, reflected back to you. Visit azurelivingwell.com. These products have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I'm Cass Dowding, and this is the Sentimental Gardener podcast. I started this podcast because I really love talking to passionate plant people and finding out why they're growing certain plants in their garden and how they came up with the design and the aesthetic and all the things that go into it. I'm really curious also about the stories connected to the plants they have in their garden, and I've found the more that I talk to people, the stories actually become the main focus. A connecting thread with that is that my garden is really just a collection of cuttings and seeds from loved ones and friends who have generously shared them over time with me. Some of those people aren't with us anymore here, and by looking at the plants they've passed on to me, I have this constant reminder of the conversations we had and the memories that we share. And I find myself reflecting on that more so through the plants that we share than the photos that I have of them. And these are the conversations that I love to have with people. Today, I'm speaking with someone whose love of flowers runs deep, not just through her garden beds, but also through her family history. Deb Collette, known to social media followers as Deb's Dahlias, and to many as the Queen of Dahlias, grew up in rural New Zealand, surrounded by family gardens and green spaces, and the kind of plants that stay with you long after you've moved on or moved away. She's a generous gardener, a regular exhibitor, judge and educator in the flower world, and we recorded this episode overlooking her garden in its winter rest time on the Mornington Peninsula. Deb says her garden is just a collection of things. But what I hear is something much more beautiful. A garden painted with memories, where violet posies are arranged exactly as her nana taught her, where every plant connects her to generations of gardeners, stretching back to a great-great-great-grandfather who carried dahlia tubers to New Zealand in 1841. Today we're diving into how certain plants become anchors to belonging, connecting us to family, place, and the love languages we absorbed before we even knew we were learning them. So a big welcome today to my guest on The Sentimental Gardener, Deb Collette. Deb, thank you so much for being my guest today on The Sentimental Gardener.
My pleasure. I think this is going to be fun.
It is. It is going to be really fun. So today's podcast is going to be a little bit different than normal because I don't normally dive into tips and advice, but because you are known to some as the Queen of Dahlias, I actually asked people in the dahlia world and in the communities to send in some questions they have about growing, showing and exhibiting dahlias. So we'll get to them at the end. But I really love to start the podcast by going back to your earliest memories of being in a garden or a green space. So I'd love it if you could share those with us.
Yeah, so many memories. In fact, I think pretty much all of my memories, early memories, have something to do with a green space or a garden. As you said, grew up rural New Zealand, so we always had land around us. The primary school, even though there was only about 40 kids at the primary school, over 2 rooms when I started there, always had lots of trees and areas that we would play in and make-believe games. And that just was the same. Every garden I went to, there was places that we as kids knew to hide out in or to find the food in or to pick flowers, whatever. So many memories across gardens, most of them family gardens, grandparents. But yeah, it was just incredible. And then as I got older, we moved house and we had access to some remnant totara bush area, which is a type of conifer tree. native to New Zealand.
Yep.
And so, we were always down there making huts and doing this and discovering that. And, it was just the best.
And what was the town like in New Zealand? Like when you say rural New Zealand, what area specifically was it?
Okay, I grew up in a little place called Ramarama, which is, if people know Auckland at all, is just north of the Bombay Hills.
Okay.
If you've been to Auckland, there's the harbour and it's beautiful, and then as you come out south on the Southern Motorway, you come to what is always infamously known as Tip Top Corner, which is not that far out from town, where big ice cream factory was and still is actually. And it was always a bit of a thing when I started working, all the rest of it. You live south of Tip Top Corner? I live south of Tip Top Corner, but I'm just north of the Bombays. And that was kind of the next feature. So the Bombays were a range of hills, market gardening and all the rest of it. But once you went over that, you dropped down onto the Waikato flat. And that was really, you were not in Auckland anymore once you went over the Bombays.
Did your parents garden?
Yeah, they did. Some of the earliest memories I have is, as I said, in the garden. It was only in later life that I realised quite what a connection to gardening some of my family had. And I guess that's been borne out in my paternal line, and that my 3 times great-grandfather actually came out to New Zealand to be the gardener for the new town of New Plymouth.
Oh, wow.
And so it's come down through the history that the Nairns have, the men in the Nairn family have always had amazing vegetable gardens, and it kind of just keeps coming down. My uncle used to grow potatoes, and we always used to have, new potatoes for Christmas lunch, which was amazing. But having said that, my mum's brother also used to grow potatoes on a much smaller scale.
Wow.
And we would have fresh potatoes there as well for Christmas Day. So, although I kind of track a lot of it back to that, 3 times great-grandfather, there's gardening across the families that has come down through the generations,
And so you grew up in amongst gardens. Did you go and study horticulture or anything? No?
No, that's another interesting story. So where the second property that we lived on, across the road, a large nursery moved out from Mount Wellington, the same place as Tip Top Corner, because they just got built out with suburbia and they needed more land. So they bought land opposite us at Ramarama and moved initially just the greenhouses, glass houses that were basically doing indoor plants. So they had a huge poinsettia business, and that's where I got a holiday job. And they had a few more bits and pieces. The operation was called Rainbow Nursery, so they still operate today. And I was on repotting or whatever happened, and you just went in and, basically walked across the road. It was literally walked across the road into this job. And I thought, oh, well, this is kind of fun. There's lots of, you can drive a forklift and you can do this, and there's, lots of different things. It's not just out there weeding pots. You might be sitting in the propagation shed and they've got tissue culture stuff coming in that you're pricking out all these new things and exciting things. And so I did. I looked at maybe going into horticulture, but I was too young to go into the horticulture program from when I finished school.
Okay.
Because I was always on the younger end of the class I was in. And so it wasn't really an option unless I took a year out. And so that didn't happen. And I ended up going into chemistry though.
Oh.
And through that worked at a large campus for the DSIR, which is the equivalent of the CSIRO in Australia. So government research organisation. It's no longer called the DSIR. It's broken up. But on that campus, as well as the chemistry division that I was working in, there was the, plant health and, horticulture this and, all the rest of it. So even though I was, in the lab standing at a bench doing chemistry, again, there was this beautiful green space and lots of glass houses and everything around me where, people were trying to figure out the next best avocado trees to use or kiwi fruit or whatever. So, yeah.
Wow. So that was still while you were in New Zealand?
Yeah, that was still while I was in New Zealand.
All right. So what's the transition then from New Zealand Deb to over here to Dahlia Deb?
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mum and Dad did grow dahlias in New Zealand at both my childhood locations. And I can remember, gorgeous big plants, lots of colour and all the rest of it. Work life, decided that working at a lab and the bench wasn't really getting me a lot of money when I had friends that were sales reps and had company cars and all the rest of it. So I got into sales, chemical sales, and then through that into a company that was doing or sourcing products for the food industry. And that company had branches in Australia and in the US, and there was a vacancy came up when the manager in Australia wanted to take some personal leave for 6 to 12 months. So with about 2 weeks' notice, I moved to Sydney.
Wow.
And the rest, they say, is history. I was planning to go back and find myself a good Kiwi joker and end up finding an Aussie bloke. So
It must have been a good one because you stuck around.
Yeah. So stayed here and then eventually moved down to Melbourne and we started looking for a rural property as a holiday home when our daughter was very young because I wanted to give her the opportunity to grow up in green spaces. And that's when we came across this place here at Red Hill. And there were some dahlias in the garden.
Oh, they were here already.
There were some here, some very bad ones. Famously got called a poo brown dahlia by somebody at the Dahlia Society of Victoria when I was a very new member there. But because of that, I thought, I can grow some more and did the classic, buy a lot from Gardeners Express and throw them in and then got onto the Dahlia Society and figured out, there's better ones to be growing and it just went from there.
Okay. Wow, what a journey.
Yeah.
So was there a moment when you discovered the dahlias where you thought this is a really special flower and this is like what I really want to start growing and exploring and collecting?
Yeah, I guess there was. I guess the fact that they were here and that I decided to grow more kind of started the love affair with them. It came in stages, I guess. So the Red Hill Gardening Society has a very long history back to the early 1900s. Meets just down the road, like literally just down the road. And so I found out about them and flower shows that they had through some advertising that they were doing at the local store. And so made a connection to there because as a kid growing up in New Zealand, our primary school had an annual flower show and calf club. So we were in dairy country, so you would raise your dairy calf and lead it around and groom it and all the rest of it, and it would be judged. But then we also had the flower show component of it. So when I saw the flower shows down here at Red Hill, it just got me back into that whole exhibiting habit again.
Okay.
And then from that, we had some people who would come down and exhibit at our show that were professional. I want to say professional in quotes, dahlia exhibitors.
Okay.
And I just thought, and through them found out about the Dahlia Society of Victoria and through that really got back into competitive exhibiting again, which is ridiculous. It's a full-on sport. People, tell people that, I exhibit dahlias and, I have some wins and they go, oh, yeah, that's really nice. And I go, you do realise it's a male-dominated competitive sport.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. So
I have no idea, yeah. So my experience with dahlias is that I found them through Instagram. I think actually it was a photo of Ben Pentreath, who's like an interior designer from England. His partner grew dahlias, but grew like, a line of them. And I'm like, what is that flower and what has he done? That's incredible. And then I discovered Sam from Sam's and Wild Violet. And she was selling them. And she was quite local when I was out in Yarra Glen at the time. And then so I found them, but I didn't understand that there was a society and a group and that there was this thing where people show them? I mean, we've been to the Royal Melbourne show, there's the Lilydale show, and there were always flowers on display. But I actually still don't understand. So can you explain a little bit of like what the role of the society is? And I know you could probably talk for a lot about the sport of growing flowers, but just explain about that. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, as somebody that was not particularly sporty and was never going to win a running race or a swimming race, at primary school this was something that I excelled at, that I could do well. And I guess the societies around, like the Dahlia Society, and there's the chrysanthemums and there's orchids, iris, you name it. There's pretty much a society for it. Started out, nobody had shopping or TV or whatever, back in the early 1900s or even earlier than that. But everybody had a garden, and so they would grow and then put them into shows. But because of that, and because there was that competitive nature to it, it pretty much was men that did it.
Right.
So the Dahlia Society of Victoria actually came about in 1960. A group of men met at the Railway Institute Hall, just down the hallway from the ballroom, the famous Flinders Street railway station ballroom, and created a specific Dahlia Society up to that. And it had been run kind of as a subsection of the Royal Horticultural Society of Victoria, but they decided that they would do something separate here. And so really, I guess the focus of that was to show competitively. They had shows. But, I mean, there's so much more that you learn from a society like that. You get to swap tubers and get more plants. You just get to swap knowledge, and you meet some amazing people, some really fascinating people.
So it sounds like it's a place for people to come and show what they're growing in their garden in a public area. But then there's that competitiveness as well. So what are they judged on? Okay,
so in dahlias in particular, although most flowers are done this way as well, it's on what we call form. So that's basically how the dahlia is built. And man has set these particular standards, which if you look at them, Mother Nature's never going to be able to meet the criteria because you are looking for perfection. And in some ways, some of the standards have been written such that the perfection they're looking for is not actually possible, even if you built the flower according to the standard, because you can't. There's only so many florets or the petals of a dahlia that you can fit, into a sphere, and you've got to have a point that they connect from, and all the rest of it. So anyway, there are these specific standards that are written, and it goes on form, mainly on form, and then on condition, colour, size, and staging. Are the main areas that the dahlia is judged on. But there's a list. There's a whole rule book, and then. So the dahlia judges come in with that side of things, and then the other side of things is the show that is put up. They will have a schedule, and they will tell you what they want to see on the bench for that particular exhibit or class. And then we have those, again, split between open, intermediate and novice growers, so that everybody can come in at a level and then progress as they get better. And we have the home gardener section, and then we do things, just displays and all the rest of it. So if you have a chance, I would definitely recommend to come along to the Dahlia Show in Victoria. It's at Mount Waverley Community Centre, always the last weekend in February.
Awesome.
So next year it's going to be the 28th of February, which is actually a Saturday, and then the 1st of March, which is the Sunday. But come along and you will be blown away by how different dahlias are as well, because there's not just the normal dahlia that people see that I think most people expect to see what we would class as a decorative or a cactus type, but there's a huge variety of different ones.
I've just discovered the anemone.
Last year. Yeah.
You shared recently how you had a friend who was quite well known for, is it developing the anemone or making it public? And he's sadly passed away recently.
Bill Johnson, he was still going at 96. He was planting dahlias last year at 95. Wow. So, quite amazing. Bill, along with a couple of other people here in Australia, were a champion of the other types.
Okay.
It comes back to that thing that I said, people think of, cactus or decorative type dahlias, and just really focused on breeding those. And that was his passion. And so with that, he shared, seed and in the end tubers when it was much easier to send things around the world. And so, there's plants named after him in the US. He sent some seed to a lady in South Australia and she named one for him. And and the thing that makes dahlia genetics so fascinating is that every seed is a completely different individual.
Yeah, that blows my mind.
So if you want to grow the dahlia that you see, you have to do that either from cutting or from the tubers. But if you just want to see something completely different, grow from seed.
And so that's where breeding comes in, doesn't it? So breeders, they take seed, they plant them, obviously, but they're looking to see what the flower is. Because it's almost like a lucky dip type of thing,
isn't it? It is
very
very much like a lucky dip. It's one of those things that you can refine your breeding program so that you can almost guarantee what type of dahlia you will get. I know that Keith Hammett in New Zealand basically was able to develop such a tight line that he could sell you seed and pretty much guarantee that it was going to be a fully double dahlia of cactus variety. But typically if you're just growing open pollinated seed and you've got lots of different varieties growing in your garden, you could get anything from a single, which is an open scented with 8 florets around it, through an enemy, through all of the different types. And I guess that's what makes it fascinating. It really is.
What I wonder is when you're breeding a new dahlia, what are you looking for? Like, because I've seen on your Instagram, you'll be like, this is beautiful, but I have to put it in the compost pile. It didn't make the cut. So how do you work out what makes the cut? Is it personal or are you looking for certain things?
It is. It is really personal. And some great advice that I was given again from Keith was to decide on your own goals.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay.
So have a plan, because if you don't have a plan, you fall in love with everything and you want to keep everything. So you have to have a plan of what you want. And are you looking for a particular colour break, something that's a little bit different, or are you specifically looking to breed show dahlias? And that is any breeder. That's kind of what they're looking at. Or are they growing for cut flower when you're looking for something slightly different? So, it's just down to personal. But dahlias, they're like so much like humans. Some of them can be around and in 3 years' time they just spontaneously combust and they just fail, or they look nothing like the flower that you got from them in their first season because their genetics are unstable. And then you'll have others, Bishop of Landolph is, a very famous kind of peony, what we call a peony style. And that's been around since the 18-somethings. So, you don't know. You really don't know what you're getting.
The names of dahlias also intrigue me. And I understand that you've done a lot of work in the Dahlia Society to help explain the heritage of names. You able to talk about what you've done and helped, how to help people understand that?
Yeah, I guess it comes back to that thing about always wanting to know a little bit more. And when you grow dahlias, or when you start growing dahlias, you'll end up with, a winky truffle and a winky cinnamon and a winky kernel, and you go, well, what's the story with the winky? And there wasn't that kind of information available. Like I'd ask a question like that, and something like winky, that was easy to answer because John Menzel who is the name, along with Anne behind Winky Dahlias. He grew his dahlias in Winky and had a huge breeding program up there in South Australia. So things like that were easy to answer. But some of the other names, whether they were from varieties overseas or breeders that had passed away, those names and stories weren't around or available. So I started doing some research, and I've got a huge stack there of stuff to write up one day. But pretty much I write about 2 articles a year that go into the Dahlia Society magazine. Some of it is available publicly on the Dahlia Society Victoria website as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just, fascinating about, first up, why did the Dahlia breeder come up with that name to start with? Because most breeders will use prefix on all of their dahlias. So how did the prefix start? And then how did the name that came after that? Was it like friends up in northern New South Wales who breed the Coorabell dahlias? A lot of the early Coorabells were named after the cows that they had on the property as well. Yeah.
That's so great.
So, you go, oh, well, who's Coorabell? And I'm just trying to think, Karen. I can't specifically think of any that were named like after the cows, but a lot of them were. And then, you look at Winky Dahlias, and he had a little bit of a wine theme going a little bit. With, Winky Lambrusco or named after colour, grape colours using Merlot or something in the name. And then others are just like, somebody will come into it and go, oh, I reckon you need to write that one a citation. It looks so good. And then you get, it becomes citation, that becomes the name.
Oh, wow. So literally a different story behind everyone.
Yeah. And when you can get, 20, 30 seeds from one seed head of one dahlia in one person's plant, patch, you can imagine how many offspring there are.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And so you've got to come up with a way to, name your dahlias.
Yeah.
And then people try, and it's hard sometimes because, there's a lot of sunsets around, or there's a lot of, I don't know, what's another name that there's a lot of, just crimson or beautiful or queen or whatever. And so, people are now working to try and find something that will spark them and give a name that's not so common.
You've said before that you're amazed how something so big and floriferous like the dahlia plant comes from like this tiny little seed.
Tiny little seed.
Can you talk more about that wonder, or when you've experienced that yourself when you're growing?
So I have a very low intervention philosophy in the dahlia patch. Every year I basically have hundreds of seedlings that will just come up in the dahlia patch.
Oh, wow.
And I go, I've just got to grin and bear it and pull a lot of those out because they're going to crowd out the dahlias that I actually want to grow in the patch. But then, I think, oh, no, I can leave those. And so a forest kind of comes up, and so I have to look at them and very quickly go, no, I don't like that flower for any reason. And so it comes out. So then I give space to the dahlias that I actually want to grow there. But it is honestly amazing. So from a little seed, a couple of millimetres in length, to a plant that's taller than you, flowering all over in 6 months.
Yeah, and they flower for quite a while too, don't they?
They do. So dahlias are, I reckon, one of the best flowers in terms of the longevity of their season. Something like iris, which I particularly like as well, and we joke about, people get the iris virus or they get the dahlia disease. Iris, you have one flower, you have one spike, and then that's it. Whereas with dahlias, the more you pick the flowers, the more they will keep flowering because they go, oh, my God, I need to procreate and she's just chopped all my flowers off, so I need to, come back with some more.
Yeah.
And it is one of those things that the more that you deadhead, like roses, the more flowers you'll get. And down here, because I plant a little bit earlier as well, or because I've got the seed that's just in the ground and it comes up and flowers in its own time, I can typically have flowers from about Christmas Day. Wow. Sometimes not great flowers or not many. And typically I can get through to Mother's Day in May.
Wow.
So there's
so
not
wonderful.
A lot of plants that give you that longer season. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. When I first discovered them, when I first grew them, I was really worried about chopping off the flowers because they look so beautiful. But then I read that the more you cut, the more you get. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's all good. And I mean, that's one of the other things that when you come to exhibit, they say that you should disbud. And by disbudding, so typically when a dahlia comes up, there will be 3 buds at the same point on the stem. And so disbudding is taking out the 2 wing buds typically on that bud, and then maybe even going down to the next lateral and taking out the next lot of buds, and maybe even down further to take out the next lot. If you want a really big flower, makes sense. You get rid of that excess and all the energy of the plant goes into this one flower. And so I go, I can't do this. Honestly, if you disbud, you don't notice the fact that you've lost those blooms.
Really?
Even if you only disbud the first one.
Okay.
You honestly don't lose. You just, the flowers just keep coming.
I'm going to try that this year.
Yeah.
I've always been scared.
So you get a bigger flower.
Yeah.
And when you want to cut them and bring them inside, it's nice to have a decent stem again. Don't worry too much about going down. If the plants are good and healthy, they'll just shoot away again and you'll have more flowers before you know it.
Oh, that's such good advice. All right, I'm going to trust the process and trust Deb's advice. I wonder if we can change tact and go a little bit more about the memories attached to some sentimental plants to you.
I have so many.
Yeah.
If you look around me here, just so many.
So you've got a different type of dahlia here.
Yes, I do. I thought I have to have one. It's not often in the garden that I don't actually have a dahlia in flower. I've got some interesting genetics going on in tree dahlia, or what I'm calling evergreen dahlias. I haven't quite got to the bottom of how they've sprung up because dahlias have a lot of chromosomes. And the typical one that we grow as a garden variety is called octoploid. We're diploid. We have 2 sets. They have 8.
Wow.
But then tree dahlias might have 12 or 32 or different. So they won't breed together.
Right.
But somehow I've got these dahlias that have just sprung up in the garden that are almost green or are green all year round.
What?
That happens in some of the tree dahlias and the one that I've got here, but not in all of them. So I don't know about those genetics. But that particular dahlia, there is some debate about what it is.
Who are you?
It has about 3 different names. You know, some people say it's Dahlia excelsius and others, I don't know, they think it's a hybrid. Keith Hammett thinks that it was probably it's a wild collected form of Dahlia imperialis.
Okay.
Now, typically when you say imperialis, you think of the big pocket handkerchief tree dahlias, the big pale pink, or some people call it mauve, one that comes up and is huge, towers over, the normal houses. But he thinks that is probably what that one is there. But anyway, it's a tree dahlia. Let's just leave it at that.
And why is this one particularly sentimental to you?
That particular tree dahlia, it was the first tree dahlia I started growing down here. I've now got a little bit of a collection going on. I've got a single white, I've got the double white, I've got the pocket handkerchief imperialis that we would normally talk about in the pale pink, and all these other evergreen ones that have just come up down here. So I guess that's sentimental just because it is something different.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. But the other ones there are sentimental, and most of them are scented, I found. And I think maybe that's the winter garden kind of thing happening.
Yeah.
The little posy of violets there.
Yep.
That reminds me of my nana, so my dad's mum, who was a keen gardener as well. So granddad was in the veggie patch and nana was doing the flowers. And we would always pick a little posy of violets, and you always had to edge them with the violet leaves. So that kind of is a memory from her. The one that's not scented there is the shrimp plant, and I was going to look up the botanical name of it, and I didn't. I think most people know what
we can look it up later too and pop it in there.
What the shrimp plant is. And I've also, so it's typically that kind of pinky shrimp colour, but there is also a green variety, which is there. And that, I guess, leads me to my garden in that I'm a collector. So I see it. I want to grow it because that one I grew in my granny's garden, so my mum's garden, and I just needed it in this garden here as well. And then the green one, oh yeah, we'll have to get that. The Daphne I've got there, I think every garden I can remember from my childhood had a Daphne in it. So, of course, we had to have one here. A new sentimental plant from this particular garden is something called Loculia, which is the little pink flower there. It's, again, a winter-scented plant. And then another one from my nana, I think, is Japonica. We called it Japonica in New Zealand. Flowering quince, I think it has another name as well. But, yeah, to me it will always be Japonica, and I guess that's the problem with, common names and all the rest of it, and even, botanical names that keep changing.
Yes, they do. They keep changing, don't they?
It's kind of crazy. Yeah. So those are kind of sentimental in terms of, because the scent also sparks that memory so strongly. And then I've got a box here which I've kind of called my my Anzac box.
Oh, so good.
But we do have, I will get these out of the way first up, some proteas. This one here is called Southern Cross. Proteoflora have actually just released it again this year, I think. For years you couldn't get it, and so a friend of mine just on the next ridge over here down on the peninsula actually grew this from cutting from me. She's got a protea farm.
So good.
And I think the extra special story about Southern Cross is it was actually developed on the peninsula here, I think.
Wow.
I'd have to check that story with her. But yeah, so Southern Cross, so protea. And my husband's, I guess, honorary uncle used to grow proteas and export them.
Okay.
We've got lots of proteas out in the garden. But, of course, I wouldn't be a Kiwi without the silver fern.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
And that's part of what I've been able to do here on the peninsula, although it's getting drier and hotter and I don't know how much longer they will survive. The silver fern is not looking good in the garden. I really need to give it a bit more care. Didn't get as much rainfall as we normally did, and it wasn't so much the heat, it was just the lack of water over summer. So I've got to look after that. Yeah. But again, that collector comes out in me, and I've got so many New Zealand plants here. Lancewood.
Oh, that's awesome.
Is another really cool one. So basically a very thin trunk, and these come out. This is the juvenile form. Once it grows quite a bit high, but it's a very, very slow growing plant.
Okay.
Pseudopanix ferox, lancewood. It will change. The leaf shape will change, but it's quite spiky. And of course, that was the defence. Because in New Zealand, there were a lot of large birds and animals that like to eat things. And another one of there's a couple of theories about why a lot of plants in New Zealand have this divaricating, I think is the term, form about them. And so there's lots of kind of intercrossing of them. And we used to call them the wire netting bush in New Zealand, or the wire netting plant in New Zealand. The idea that they grow like this is it's actually quite hard for birds or for foragers to actually eat, and the leaves are not that significant either. No. But yeah, they're not sure whether it was just a response to bleak conditions, because often these are grown in grew in quite high wind, salt-laden environments, and whether that was just a way to grow. So this one here is actually a Carokia, and this one is a Muhlenbeckia. So they both have a very similar habit, but completely different genuses. So often the plants I grow are not just because of memories. In terms of these ones, it's because I can use them in floral art. So there's a whole area out that we call the picking garden. Yes. And this is in there. And both of these plants are now at the size where I can actually pick them and use them. So that's cool.
That's exciting.
This is another one that I only just actually picked up. We call it Puri. It's a Vitex. I found one, and so I'm growing it. The reason, though, that I decided that I would grow this one because, again, very slow growing. The leaves are kind of nice and shiny, flowers very, very small, not much, is it was growing at my primary school.
Oh.
This huge tree, which, you know, as kids, it would take 3 or 4 of us kids with our arms out as little, you know, primary school to get around this tree. It was growing there, of course, when my dad went to the same primary school, and it's still growing there. But I thought I might start one down here. So that's why I did that one. And then I was reading a book recently, Plantology.
Yes, I haven't got that, but it's on my list, yeah.
And they actually suggested this as one of the trees, which was quite interesting. I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't have just bought one. Maybe I should have bought a lot more. And then Pahudakawa, which is the New Zealand Christmas tree with the beautiful red flowers. And again, because I have to do the collection, I've got the variegated form as well. And then one that's kind of a little bit similar to the Pahudakawa is this one. It's a Feijoa. So it's actually South American. But Kate Evans in New Zealand has written a book on the Feijoa. And this was one of the places that in the gardens that people had Feijoas. We knew where they were when it was Feijoa season. The kids would always end up, you know, eating Feijoas off the ground because they ripen and fall to the ground. That's when they're ready to be eaten. So that was that one. And then I guess I had to put in an Australian one. And I mean, I really love the grevilleas and all the rest of it. I guess the proteas are there as, you know, members of the same Proteaceae family. But, you know, we've got grevilleas and quite a few different eucalypts in down here. And that's one thing that I think I need to challenge myself on is being able to identify them. Because in New Zealand, you know, I've just rattled off all these trees and you knew what they were and, you know, you called them by, in a lot of cases, the Maori name. And I guess it was a little bit easier in that most Maori used the same name rather than here in Australia where the dialects change so much from different, you know, locations. But it was just common. I just knew. I'd been taught the names. I come over and I go, oh, that's a gum tree. You know, what gum is it? I'd get these blank looks. It's a gum tree. I'm going, but it's different to this one. So what's this one? And nobody can tell me. And I've got books on it and I don't know. It just seems really hard to be able to learn what the different gums are by looking at them. But, yeah, that'd be a project I'd like to do.
It sounds like a project that would suit you perfectly. But I do agree because through my own gardening journey, I've started off with the plants in my garden.
Yep.
And then you learn what they are. And then, yeah, there was a gum tree growing on the side of the neighbour's fence. But then it wasn't until I met other people and they're like, this is a gum tree. I'm like, oh, well, that looks different to what I know to be a gum tree.
Yeah.
And then you start going, well, yeah, well, what's that one called? And then do you find it easy that there's a lot of, is there a gap in information available or like how do you go about finding what they are? Do you just talk to people or is this what you're saying needs to be done?
Well, there's lots and lots of books over here. I've picked them up at, you know, op shops or whatever at different times on, you know, identifying gum trees. But I don't know. I get it out and I look at it and I start shutting down because I go, well, is that this leaf or is that this bark? Or if I look at the gum tree at this point on its trunk, it's doing this sort of bark, but somewhere else it's doing another sort of bark. I don't know.
That's all right. So I've gone to the Dahlia passionate community.
Yes.
And I've asked them to send through some questions for you that they would love to ask you if they were here today. So the first one is, over all your years with dahlias, growing them, showing them and everything in between, is there one lesson that really surprised you or changed the way you do things? Maybe even something that seasoned growers don't often think about.
I think I can answer it in terms of coming back to that poo brown dahlia that I had. And another gentleman in his 90s, I think Bob's in his 90s and is still with us, said to me, it takes just as much effort to grow a bad dahlia as it does to grow something that will do well on the show bench. And I think that was reinforced in terms of in COVID lockdowns. I basically just focused back on what grew well for me here and what I knew did well on the show bench, and made my decisions on growing for the next season based on that. So I grew more of what I knew did well on the show bench that I knew grew well for me.
Yeah, okay.
So I think it's that kind of two-pronged thing. Don't just go chasing the next big thing because you don't know what sort of stock you're going to get, whether you're going to actually get good stock, and then whether it's actually going to grow in your conditions.
So true. Yeah.
So, yeah.
What aspect of showing dahlias brings you the most joy?
Seeing the finished exhibit on the bench, I think. Just spending that time to put together, and I'm talking about championships, when you've got 9 vases of different types and different requirements, different sizes that you've got to meet, if we're talking about the state championships or some of the big championships, and just standing back once I finished it, when it's ready for judging, and looking at it and saying, I grew it, we transported it, I've got it on the bench and it looks damn good.
I can imagine it's such a process because people must walk in, they go, oh, that's a nice flower or whatever. Like, maybe people who aren't as experienced in the process. But for you, it started all the way back from the seed or the tuber, and just that energy to get it through, and then, here you are. It's almost like creating art, isn't it? Like when someone paints a piece, puts it on the wall, and people go, oh, yeah, I see something there. But for you, you're like, it's so much more than just the little flower that's in the vase.
So well said.
Yeah, okay.
So well said. Yeah.
Okay, this is more of a practical question. What's the best potash fertiliser for dahlias, particularly pom-pom, and how do I apply it?
I tend to just use something like Sudden Impact for roses. So when Nutrog first came out with products, they basically said if you want it to flower or fruit, use Sudden Impact for roses, and if you want it to be nice and leafy and green, use Sudden Impact for lawns.
Oh, okay.
So back when they basically just had those two as their fertilisers. So if you were wanting to grow great, spinach or whatever, silver beet, use Sudden Impact for lawns. And if you wanted it to flower or fruit, then use Sudden Impact for roses because it does have the higher potash in it. Having said that, I'm doing all sorts of things. I'm then liquid fertilising and all the rest of it as well. It's one of those things. Often I look at the plant and decide what it needs. What is it telling me it needs at the specific time? But yes, dahlias do like to be fed and watered. They do like that. So I would suggest that, get your flowers growing well, and often that starts, soil preparation and trying to get that as good as you can get it. Fertilisers or composts and, mulching to keep moisture in. But when you're fertilising, use what you've got. Keep it regular and top it up with a bit of a foliar feed as well.
Okay. What would be the first new class of dahlias you've included in the judging classification?
Well, our current judging classification and rules and standards go back to 1998. Haven't been changed since then. Do we want to change them? Yes.
Okay.
Do we need a few more judges that can debate what needs to be changed before we do that? Probably yes. And so we were going around in these circles. So we're actually on a task to find more and train more new judges first. Then to get people talking between states, because there's a few different rules in different places, not looking at anybody in particular, Queensland, but you know you're there. So I think it's just, as judges, we just need to be open to the fact that there are new varieties. Having said that, Queensland has just added the orchid, which is a cross between what we would classify as an orchid and a collarette dahlia, into their standards. But they can go on the bench here under miscellaneous at the moment, and we would judge them appropriately. So I think it's going to be a long process. It's been 1998 that the last review was done. I still think it's going to be another few years before we start adding new ones.
Yeah.
But I think the orchid has a really strong following. There's people breeding it. Bill Johnson was doing some work in his program as well on orchids. So I think that probably will be. And maybe water lilies with pointy florets might be another class that we bring in as well.
Very exciting. Watch this space.
Yep.
Thoughts on breeders not focusing on show standards and going down the unique genetic focus?
Like I said, have a goal and go for it. It really is. I mean, is it boring to see these perfectly spherical or round dahlias on the show bench all the time? Maybe. But those are the standards we've got. That's where you try and breed if you're trying to do that. And we have to keep breeding because, as I said, dahlia genetics break down. And so varieties that have been stable on the show bench for years and years and years all of a sudden don't perform anymore. We need a replacement for that. I think it's equally valid, whichever way you want to go. The only thing I would say is that, make sure you test them. There's a rule kind of 3 years.
Okay.
To make sure that the genetics are relatively stable. Having said that, they can still fall over in year 4 or maybe year 10. You can't tell.
Yeah, okay. Someone said, I'd love to know Deb's method of dahlia storage and whether she takes new shoot cuttings off tubers or new season planting or plants the tubers directly.
Okay. Now, I need to say that for every advice that you will get from somebody to say you must treat dahlias and do things with dahlias this way, I think you can find an equally successful person doing it the complete opposite.
Okay. Yeah, good point.
I've always been a little bit left field because the dahlias grow here, which is at a holiday place. So I don't have the time. I don't live with my dahlias.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't have that time. So my storage is they stay in the ground.
All right.
I'm here on Red Hill. It's called Red Hill because it's red clay soil.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't think that would be a good option because they can rot out. The area that I've got them is on a slight slope, really good drainage. It's all good. There are those little varieties that like a little bit of extra care and you need to know who they are and look after them appropriately. But I leave mine in and basically I used to be able to, before the collection got a little bit bigger, dig, divide and replant in a day.
Wow.
So I would just basically dig them up, cut off a couple of tubers, throw them back in the hole and move on.
Yeah.
And it's still kind of the process I do. If I want to store some tubers as spares or backups or whatever, I use Koya. Seems to be a really good product to use there. Do I do green cuttings? No. Again, I had a friend that moved into a property that had some camellias, a lot of different camellias there. And so I went around and took a lot of cuttings because they were basically getting rid of the whole garden to build the new house.
Yeah.
Do you know the miles that those camellia cuttings did in the back of the car going between here and Melbourne and then Melbourne and here and all the rest of it just to try and keep them growing?
Right.
It would be the same thing with dahlia cuttings. And so, no.
Yep.
Does that handicap me on the show bench? Potentially, because, it always used to be said, and it's coming around now, that green plants will grow better than from tubers. They tend to get going. They don't, rest on their laurels because they know they've got a tuber underground with so they can get some food for. They're keen to survive and go. But anyway, that's what I do. Like I said, everybody that says that you have to grow from green plants to win on the show bench, then people do it equally well from tubers. So
yeah, that's good to know. Okay, someone else says, I would love to know a rundown of Deb's soil prep in order for the best dahlias and to also support the plant's health and ward off pests.
Again, minimal intervention for me. So kind of that no dig so that you're not disturbing the soil structure and compacting it or whatever. I know a lot of old-term dahlia growers that used to basically say that they ended up with this almost hard base at where their rotary hoe or whatever, however they were tilling the soil got to. because they would do it every year. So they basically were just compacting an area of ground at the bottom of the reach of whatever mechanical means they were doing. So you don't really want that because you want the soil to be breathing in air, through it all. So I have minimal intervention, so I'm always adding to the top of it.
Yep.
So really putting in good quality, mulches and all the rest of it. I put lucerne on, although I've just seen price of lucerne and I'm going, I don't know whether I can afford to do it this year. So that breaks down and gives, good nutrients back to it. So I think start with soil structure, focus on that. And then you just have to keep looking after them and feeding on top of that. Yeah. And the healthier your plants are, the less pest problems
that's a good
you'll have.
Yeah.
And then because I grow in such an open and large area, it also gives, and there's other plants around, it gives, some habitat for good bugs to be growing as well. It's not quite a concentrated look at me and all the bugs go, oh, yeah, that'd be a good place to live. So try and keep that biodiversity happening as well.
Because there's a whole conversation we could have here with like what's a pest and what's,
Yes.
So, but, for the sake of time, we'll move on to the next question. How feasible would it be for Dahlia Club members to fundraise enough money to bring overseas bred dahlias to Australia, specifically unicorn dahlias?
Yeah.
Are there certified quarantine nurseries that could facilitate this and then propagate to eventually increase stock?
Yeah, there is. There was a guy that bought a whole heap of tubers in from the US probably not that long ago. Well, having said that, it's probably 5 or 6 years ago. It's possible. He did it. He propagated this stock around. But again, you don't know whether you're bringing in that unicorn and it's almost at the end of its life cycle.
Yeah.
Would the Dahlia Society do it? I don't think so. Has it, like I said, it has been done before. The thing is we have stuff that people overseas covered as well. Is it a bit of that grass is always greener on the other side of the fence?
That's such a good point.
And are we better to look at trying to breed those sort of things ourselves? But yeah, no, it can be done, but it's very expensive to go through the process. And survival rates, I'm not so sure. But then circling back to something, found out in family letters that my 3 times great-grandfather that came out to New Zealand in 1841, of course, brought all these plants with him, including some dahlia tubers. So he had dahlia tubers, he had strawberries, he had watermelon, all these kind of things that were relatively easily transportable.
I love that. That's so good.
Yeah.
Are you ready for some quick-fire questions to finish things off?
Oh, yes.
Now we've got through all those. They're really easy and just you don't have to think too much about just whatever pops into your mind.
Okay, let's see
how it goes. It's a bit of fun to finish off, although this has been a very fun conversation. All right, which is more fun for you, finding a unicorn tuber or growing from seed and waiting for the surprise?
I think growing from seed and waiting for the surprise. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of going after unicorns. And if the plant's any good in 5 years' time, everybody will have it and I can swap it easily then.
A dahlia you think deserves more love?
I mean, I have my favourites. I mean, the anemones are really quite beautiful. I don't know. I think there's so many different ones to love that as long as people are loving dahlias, I think that's the main thing.
What's one garden tool you can't live without?
Not so much a garden tool, but my knee pads, my strap-on knee pads. I love them. Yeah, I've got quite sensitive skin and even with the knee pads, I end up with this red mess of skin on my knees after a bout of weeding in the garden or whatever. But no, I'm not in the garden without knee pads and probably my hori knife as well.
So good. All right, one word or sentence to describe how you feel when you're out in your garden.
At peace, almost. Yeah, just whether you're there weeding, which I think is the greatest thing, or seeing something that's just come into flower, yeah, it's a peaceful feeling.
Beautiful. And lastly, if you could share a cuppa with any gardener, past or present, sit in your garden and have a cup of tea with them and talk about garden stories, who would it be?
I really don't know. But the person that's kind of always fascinated me would be David Attenborough.
Mm.
You know, he's not a gardener, but he's definitely connected to the earth. So I think it might be nice to have a chat with him and find out what his green spaces are like.
So good. I love it. And I just thought of one more before we go. And we did talk about this before we recorded, but how do you pronounce dahlia? Because I've said it now. I can hear a few different ways today. Dahlia or dahlia?
Okay, I say dahlia. It was dahlia when I was growing up as a kid. I still feel comfortable saying dahlia now. Should it be dahlia? Quite potentially. The theory is that the genus was named after Andreas Dahl, an Austrian, and I'm sure he wasn't saying D-A-H-L as day, so maybe it should be dahlia.
Yeah, whatever way you say it, we all love them, whatever they are.
We know what we all know what we're talking about.
Deb Collette, this has been such a lovely afternoon with you talking plants and hearing your stories. So thank you so much for being a guest today on the Sentimental Gardener podcast.
My pleasure. I've enjoyed it immensely. Thank you.
What I see through Deb's stories is how some plants don't just live in our gardens. They live in our bodies and our memories and our earliest ways of knowing love. Before we had language for it, we knew what it meant to watch someone arrange violets just so, with their leaves wrapped around the flower like a frame. To smell Daphne and instantly feel home. These small sensory rituals, how to tie a posy, how you plant a tuber, how you pronounce a plant's name, become the ways we remember who we are and where we come from. Deb's garden might look like a collection of things, but really, it's a constellation of relationships, living connections to people and places that are long gone but never lost. And while these stories connect us back, sometimes generations back, like for Deb's family, we also get to decide what we carry forward. The plants we choose, the gardens we shape, the rituals we begin now, they're part of a new kind of inheritance. One that reflects not just where we've come from, but where we are and what this moment is asking of us. Deb also reminds us that belonging doesn't always begin just in childhood. Sometimes it's something we grow into. In dahlia clubs and horticultural societies, among the ribbons and the rivalry, there's also something tender, the chance to be understood, to bring your love of something, maybe even your obsession, and have someone else say, "Oh, me too, I get it," even when family and friends don't get it. So if you're listening today with a plant in mind, maybe one that reminds you of someone you love, or maybe one you're just learning to love, I hope you feel a sense of belonging. I hope you're reminded that tending a garden isn't just about growing things. It's about remembering things. It's about becoming someone who knows how to care for soil, for stories, and for connection. If you've enjoyed this episode today, I'd be so grateful if you shared it or left a review on Apple or Spotify. It really helps others find these stories. A huge thank you to Hayden Schuler of Varaya Gardening for our theme music and to Tom Dowding for audio engineering. This is the Sentimental Gardener podcast, produced and edited by me, Cass Dowding. This episode was recorded on the traditional lands of the Bunurong peoples of the Kulin Nations.
Whatever your goal, trade show giveaways, client gifts, or team gear, 4imprint has the promo products to match, with thousands of options from apparel and drinkware to tech and totes. It's easy to find the right fit for your brand and budget with standout choices at every price point. And with their 360-degree guarantee, you can be 4imprint certain your order will show up just right on time. Explore more at 4imprint.com.